All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to MCJ Reports. Not a typical MCJ report this evening, but rather an MCJ chat. We'll go through some headlines, talk about some general news and bits and pieces, and also some updates for Freedom Party of Victoria. I'd like to welcome everybody to the show. I can see that we are effectively live right now on 3 platforms. That is Facebook, YouTube, and Rumble. There's Jean, Marianne, Sharon, Sound Tracker. It's great to see you guys there. I can see that you are all tuning on. So why don't you go ahead and give the broadcast a share, get the word out there. Independent media doing what we do in these times. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, with an election very, very close. That's right, less than 3 months. We are officially in hunting season. That's right. So get excited, ladies and gentlemen, because we are facing a huge opportunity for good, decent people to get their foot in the door in Parliament and to take cases of those who simply do not deserve to be there, those who cannot be trusted with pouring a glass of water, let alone serving in the Parliament. So get excited, ladies and gentlemen, because we have lots of exciting news and announcements. So I'll just wait for people to hop on. I think that we're live, actually. Let me just double check to make sure that we're connected. I'm 99% sure that I'm not simply talking to myself here. And no, I'm not. I can see that there are over 100 of you here. So that is absolutely fantastic. So if you just tuned in, I'm your host, Morgan C. Jonas, and you are watching the show MCJ Report. So go ahead and give the broadcast a share, and we'll get stuck into it. All right, now I can see comments. Before I couldn't see them, actually. They were comments from a previous show. So I see Sharon there. Sharon is our resident security here on MCJ Report. So anyone that does the wrong thing in the chat group will get booted by Sharon. Sharon, thank you for doing what you do. Alrighty, and I see Hillary there. There's Nick. How you going? Lee. It's great to have you guys on board. Alrighty, so I'm going to go ahead and get started, ladies and gentlemen. Let's smash through some headlines, and then we'll go through some other updates and some interesting bits and pieces. Alrighty, who here saw this? Raise your hand if you saw this. iCook boss Ian Cook to run against Premier Dan Andrews in the seat of Mulgrave. So Mr. Cook, whose business was destroyed due to the Sluggate scandal, he has said that he's had enough and he's opted to contest in this election in the seat of Mulgrave, and he is running on a, quote, anti-corruption ticket. That's right, calling out the Labor Party for their corruption, and I say the more voices, the better. So, Mr. Cook, if you're out there, get in touch with us, because we, of course, have our top gun, Aidan McClendon, that's right, endorsed for the seat of Mulgrave. So I think that Daniel Andrews, with several of the contenders coming into Mulgrave, is going to be in a lot of trouble. Now, you might not necessarily know that if all you did was read the mainstream media, whereby we've seen headlines over the past few days, such as the victory is already secured for Dan Andrews, or Dan Andrews set to retain government. Don't buy it, folks. It's all white noise at this stage, and we're living in a crazy time, and I'm telling you that anything is possible. And based on the sentiment that I have received from many people in Daniel Andrews' electorate, his own constituents, I can tell you, the man's absolutely despised. We've become very friendly with all the shop owners around Dan Andrews' office. Nobody likes this guy. So I'm not sure where these so-called polls come from, but the word on the street, as in on the streets of Mulgrave, most definitely indicate a very, very different story. And I think that's something that we can all be happy about. And I truly believe that come November, Dan Andrews, he'll be out of here. I reckon he'll be gone. And then we can determine what the next step is, because it's not enough to simply have this man voted out of Parliament. He needs to, of course, stand up and to be held accountable for all the damage, pain and suffering that has occurred as a result of the decisions that he has made. So what do you think, folks? Royal Commission specifically into Dan Andrews? Or may we potentially see some criminal charges brought against him in the future? Well, for that to happen, we of course need to change the seats in Parliament. We need to vote some of these Labor people out and vote people in who would be in favour of instigating those types of proceedings. If you'd like to see something like that, raise your hand. All right, moving along here. What do we have next? Huge changes to two hated remaining COVID rules that could be announced this week. So, the hated COVID rules, right? Well, if you hate the rules so much, then maybe you understand what I'm saying. All right, so what are we talking about here? I'm just going to play you a 40-second clip.
The Prime Minister has hinted the COVID isolation period could be cut from 7 days down to 5, where National Cabinet meets this week. Anthony Albanese reportedly broke the news to his favourite footy team, the Rabbitohs, saying Damien Cook, who's tested positive to the virus.
All right, so 7 days to 5 for quarantine. So, again, of course, the government responding to the most up-to-date and professional health and scientific advice. So clearly 5 days is scientifically proven to be better than 7 days now, and it looks like they may be removing the mask mandate on the aeroplanes, right? Who here follows that particular rule? If you do, raise your hand or keep your hands down. All right, moving along, what do we have next? What are we talking about here? Matthew Guy says Royal Commission should probe Andrews' quote tragic COVID management. All right, so by tragic, Matthew Guy is referencing, of course, the whole hotel quarantine situation. He's been beating that drum for a really long time, the whole 800 people dead sort of thing. But what Mr. Guy has actually failed to address is the brutal response of Victoria Police, who, of course, use their riot equipment. I don't need to tell you. You know exactly what Victoria Police did over the lockdowns with public order response, critical incidents response team, and those huge rifles they took out to the streets of Melbourne, whereupon unarmed people were shot at close range. But Mr. Guy hasn't seemed to have mentioned anything like that. He seems more concerned about the hotel quarantine and the playgrounds being closed and things like that. I'm just wondering, how long can this guy right here, bad joke, how long can he ignore what happened in relation to the absolute brutality of Victoria Police? How long can he remain quiet? I think that he will always remain quiet because he doesn't particularly want to rock the boat. What do you think at home? Put your thoughts in the comments. Alrighty, what do we have here? What do we have? Thick blue line. Victoria builds the country's biggest police force. That's right. Now, this is actually an article from November 2021. But what it appears is that the funding for Victoria Police is not slowing down anytime soon. So in addition to now boasting Australia's biggest police force and most equipped police force to respond to things like, unarmed protesters who aren't posing any danger to anyone, that sort of thing, Victoria Police is actually set to receive several $100 million more in funding for more personnel. And I believe the target is to expedite the recruitment of an additional 500 police officers in Victoria, because apparently there's not enough as it is with, what's the figure right now? Is it close to 25,000, something to that effect? Anyway, thick blue line. This was from November, and you'll see why I'm saying this. I'm going to put it into context for you. There you go. Money well spent, right? Who here remembers that day? I remember that day very well. That was the day that Matt Lawson was shot with a 10 millimeter projectile. Who here remembers that? Who here was there, actually? Raise your hand. So what do we have here? What do we have? Spending on police and prisons has ballooned in Victoria as governments and oppositions have responded to lobbying both from the influential police association, right, and the high-profile crimes and scare campaigns, it says. Notable in particular was Premier Daniel Andrews' surprise December 2016 announcement, right, 2016, amid controversies around, quote, African gang violence, a breakout from the Parkville Detention Centre and a spike in crime rate of a $2 billion investment in more than 3,100 extra police. And that was the biggest boost in police in the state's history. But now we're looking at an additional 500. All right, so we can have more of these guys so they can keep everybody safe should there be another lockdown situation, right? All right, so what do we have here? Police are blowing its budget despite huge funding boosts. All right, so it's not enough. Actually, they want more. Probably they want more weaponry. See that weapon right there, right? To the right of the photo. I'm fairly certain that is the baton round launcher, although I could be mistaken on that one. Okay, so Victoria Police has grown through the last decade into the largest law enforcement agency in the country. That's right. Okay, we just said that. And there's been a large spending on, of course, police stations and, quote, high-tech gear, including military-style assault rifles, anti-riot equipment, armoured personnel carriers, and a new fleet of aircraft. All right, so Victoria Police most definitely gearing up. And here we have a Victoria Police officer looking very proud of herself, I would say. What do you think, folks? All right, so we're looking at a budget here. This is recently of an additional $342 million to recruit 502 extra police officers, 50 protective service officers, and that's over 2 years. All right, so Victoria Police definitely looking to boost their numbers and their response capability. I wonder if we'll see a repeat of what happened over the past 2 years. Okay, so if you do not want to see a repeat of what happened, then you need to, of course, vote very, very wisely this November, because the future of our state depends on it. Really, guys, it's now or never, to be honest. All right, so let's talk about some campaign tactics here by Dan Andrews. We see he's on the campaign trail offering free money to everyone. That's right, but of course you know that it's not really free. The money that Daniel Andrews is offering up is taxpayer money. That's right, Victoria being the most taxed state in Australia, and I dare say also holding the dubious position of Australia's most mismanaged economy. But Daniel Andrews got a good solution for that. We will pay their entire HECS debt free, right? Free, because they just popped up out of nowhere. Free uni degrees for Victorian nurses. Alrighty, so there he is, looking very proud of himself. How come everybody else has to wear a mask in this photo apart from Dan Andrews? Bit hypocritical, wouldn't you say? Alright, so what do we have here? More than 10,000 students will have the cost of their nursing undergraduate studies paid for under a new $270 million plan. Alright, so $270 million. Daniel Andrews has decided that this would be a good use of taxpayer money. Of course, we've got a lot of businesses that have gone under as a direct result of government policy over COVID. But Daniel Andrews says, well, we need a lot more nurses here in Victoria. And maybe he's predicting that there's going to be more sickness in Victoria. Therefore, we need to boost these numbers and give huge financial incentives for young people to get into this particular line of work. What do you think? Look at this. So all new domestic students entering nursing courses in Victoria next year will receive a scholarship of $16,500 courtesy of the taxpayer. All right, I think that the community should be consulted before these types of decisions. All right, here he is. What does he have to say? Have a look.
If you're in year 11 or year 12 right now, choose nursing. Now's the time to choose nursing. 10,000 nursing students.
Now's the time. Dan Andrews has told you, just do it. Listen to what he says. I mean, why would anyone listen to this guy? What an absolute joke. I don't know why anybody would respect him. He's not powerful. You need to remember, guys, he's a glorified office boy that has worked out how to manipulate the system. And the more people who ignore Daniel Andrews, I say the better off we'll all be. Alrighty, what do we have here? Okay, here's another interesting use of taxpayer money. Look at this. The state government is set to splurge on a policy advisor for the city's second injecting room. All right, because the first injecting room was such a great success, right? Right next to a school in Richmond, whereby we've seen used syringes showing up in playgrounds, right? What a great decision that was. All right, so what do we have here? So government set to splurge on a policy advisor for the city's second injecting room, despite a long-awaited report into the facility being delayed. Goes on to say here, state government is hiring a $170,000 policy advisor for Melbourne's second injecting room, despite not even having a report it had commissioned into the controversial facility. All right, so more money down the drain, and the results could be very disastrous. It's almost like Victoria, doesn't have a debt problem or anything like that. All right, here's some more campaign shenanigans here. Safer and more affordable cars for young regional Victorians. All right. So what's big government doing now? The big overarching government that is seeking to provide for everyone. So, Daniel Andrews will be providing $5,000 for young drivers to upgrade their vehicles. Okay, and it says the trial aims to replace up to 1,000 unsafe vehicles. So you do the maths. How much is that? So please vote for me. I'll buy you a new car. Now, you need to remember at home, ladies and gentlemen, that if the government can provide everything that people need, the government is also capable of taking away everything people need. We, of course, see a rapidly expanding public sector and bureaucracy here in Victoria. Actually, it's projected by next year that 47% of our GDP here in the state of Victoria will be essentially catering to the public sector. So very, very rapidly growing government, but not just any government, a government that, of course, has no idea how to manage any type of economy. And those who end up being on the receiving end of all of this are, of course, who? The small business owners. That's right. Who pay the lion's share of the tax in this state. They are the ones that, of course, get hit the hardest. That's why at Freedom Party of Victoria, at the forefront of our agenda, is standing up for Australian-owned small business and seeking to alleviate these needless state taxes wherever possible. All right, what else do we have here? All right, some more spending from the state government. Big boost to offshore wind to drive jobs, all right? Because we can all agree that this will indeed drive jobs, right? All right, the Andrews Labor government is further cementing Victoria's status as the clean energy capital of Australia with a funding boost of $40 million for offshore wind projects, right? To drive jobs and bring forward the next wave of renewable energy opportunities. Well, if the industry was so profitable and if the industry had such great capability to create jobs, then why is it necessary for the Victorian state government to invest $40 million to do what? Subsidise the costs, the setup costs, the running costs. I mean, we've got this terrible situation whereby the state government is intent on closing down our reliable power plants, all right, and without providing any solution to the ever increasing and ballooning energy prices in Victoria. This is their solution right here. Just take $40 million, and it's actually a lot more than this for various projects, by the way, and to just throw it into these energy production exercises, many of which can be argued are not efficient, are not capable of producing the amount of energy required at a price which can ease the cost of living. All right. In fact, I predict this will be a very, very bad effect on the cost of living. All right, moving along here. What else do we have? Oh, Daniel Andrews announces a $250 payment to ease the cost of living pressures. Right. So we've got rent up in some areas of Victoria, close to 10% over the past 12 months. Right. Energy prices through the roof. But Daniel Andrews is here to save everyone with a $250 payment. The government has your back. No, what we need is for the government to stop breathing down our necks and to start disbanding some of the bureaucracies that have been created, particularly during the course of the past 5 years. All right, so what do we have here? From the 1st of July until June 2023, households that log on to the government's Energy Compare website will get a $250 once-off payment. Oh my goodness. All right. Vote for me. I'll give you $250. All right, what do we have here? The cost of Victoria's suburban rail loop could outweigh its benefit according to a new analysis. You know, no big deal. I mean, it's only, how much is it? What, $100 billion over a few decades? Premier Daniel wait, where are we? No, I wanted to show you something on this article, actually. Where was it? Well, it's, I mean, essentially what we're looking at here is a massive, massive spend. I believe that the total budget over a few decades is about $170 billion. But what we see, of course, time and time again when it comes to these big infrastructure builds, we never see any type of published plan to economically justify whatever said infrastructure is on the, whatever sort of proposed infrastructure job is on the table at the time. It's always about building trains and getting people working, but we never see any discussion about whether or not the project will be viable, whether it will result in some type of return for Victoria. A lot of economists might actually disagree with Daniel Andrews' approach of just building infrastructure no matter the cost. It's a very common rationale that first we should incentivize economic growth before investing such huge amounts of finances in infrastructure. Kind of makes sense, right? Build the economy first, maybe provide some zonable taxation incentives in regional Victoria, right? Allow businesses to keep more of what they earn so they can hire more staff, so they can invest on a much deeper level in research and development and so forth. Allow various regions to prosper, then look at some big infrastructure projects. How about that? But no, Daniel Andrews does it the other way around. You know, it really reminds me a lot of the Chinese Communist Party. A great example is the port that was built in Sri Lanka, the port of Hambantota. Put your hands up if you remember that absolute disaster. China comes in, right, in Sri Lanka with the Belt and Road Initiative, wines and dines the top echelons of the Sri Lankan government. They sign up to the deal. China builds a massive commercial port, right, in Hambantota, Sri Lanka, which was several times larger than the incoming and outgoing sort of trade capacity of Sri Lanka. So the really basic rationale behind building such a large commercial port was, well, if we build a big port, our trade will increase also, right? If we build a big port, we'll magically start exporting more and importing more. So did that happen? No, it didn't. It was a dodgy deal. You had a bunch of crooked politicians lining their pockets the whole way through, money laundering, and of course an untenable debt, whereby in the end, of course, Sri Lanka was left with no option but to essentially default on that debt, and China came in afterwards and just scooped it all up. So, yeah, kind of reminds me of that type of scenario unfolding in front of our eyes here in Victoria. Don't worry about how much it costs. Don't worry about the debt. Don't ask any questions in regards to paying off the debt or paying off certain projects. Just have complete faith that Daniel Andrews is smart and that the Labor government knows exactly what they're doing and they know what's best for you. All right. So anyway, I guess what I'm really trying to say here is vote wisely in November. Do not allow this madness to continue, because I'm telling you, it's unsustainable and Victoria will be driven into the ground, all right, with this sort of disgraceful mismanagement. All right, what else do we have here? Daniel Andrews' Facebook ad spend, $1 million. Drop in the ocean, right? Who cares? Who cares about $1 million on Facebook when we're losing billions on infrastructure? No, it's still obviously very bad. I hardly see how it's appropriate that the Victorian taxpayers should be funding Daniel Andrews' social media ad campaigns. Okay, that was the figure I was looking for before. All right, the suburban rail loop on track to cost $125 billion. I mean, these projects always go way over budget, of course, and now this is over a couple of decades, but of course the annual spend is massive. And there's Daniel Andrews there just looking to build Melbourne in his image. I'm sure that he would very much like the idea of regional Victoria suffering to drive more people into Melbourne so he can justify these huge infrastructure builds. No, I'm telling you, ladies and gentlemen, we need an agenda that can enact some type of favourable zonable taxation policy for regional Victoria to build up regional Victoria, alleviate the congestion from Melbourne, create greater jobs, right, and an incentive for large corporations to actually move out into regional. And I think the state would be better off. We'd have less need for these infrastructure builds. We could open up a greater degree of comfortable and affordable housing, especially for young families. But no, we've got this maniac here. We've got to get rid of him. I'm telling you, folks, this man right here, no good. I'm not going to give him credit and say that he's powerful. I'm not going to refer to him as a dictator either, because to refer to him as a dictator would be to admit the man's powerful. He's not. Glorified office boy that has been able to manipulate the system, and he needs to go. All right, we also have the Commonwealth Games coming up in 2026. According to the government, that's another spend of somewhere in the vicinity of $3 billion. But I've actually read other reports which indicates that the cost will be a lot closer to $6 billion. So, of course, we see more and more Victorians sliding into poverty, and the government just beating their chest, right? Beating their chest, investing in certain, let's call them street parties, the Commonwealth Games, and you got senior citizens going to bed at 1 p.m. in the afternoon because they can't afford to keep the heating on, right? It shows the bankrupt state of morality in the Victorian government. All right, so what else? What am I showing you here? Okay, Victoria's budget showed the state's debt pile will top $167 billion by 2025. That's right, no plan to pay it off, just rack it up and the people can deal with it, right? And the interest, right, next year alone will be $4 billion. So $4 billion just on interest, plus billions more in whatever the government decides they want to spend our money on. I mean, it's really theft, isn't it? Australians paying the world's highest electricity prices. We knew that. That's been going on for a long time. Electricity prices rose to their highest on record, and the nightmare is set to continue. Australians haven't seen a fraction of what's coming. All right. Sounds very ominous, doesn't it, ladies and gentlemen? And I tell you that it is. Absolutely. We need to start exploring oil and gas. Who here likes the idea of that? We need to stop closing our reliable power plants. We need to stop subsidizing inefficient energy production facilities. Bloody hell. We're in a lot of trouble. We are in a massive amount of trouble, folks. All right, what else do we have here? $1 more per kilo. Prices of stone fruit, apples, pears, and cherries to rise as bee shortage stings. All right, so food supply issues. First it was lettuce, and now we see that we may be in store for some additional price hikes with our favorite fruit and vegetables. So if you've got the capability to grow fruit and veggies at home, I recommend that you do so. All right, what do we have here? Renters struggling to compete in private rental market as prices rise in Melbourne's southeast. That's right, southeast. What electorate is in southeast? That's right, the district of Mulgrave. That's right. Daniel Andrews wouldn't care though, of course. And we've seen prices hit nearly an increase of 10% for a lot of these rentals in these outer suburban regions. So what do we do, folks? What do we do about all this? Well, I'll tell you what. What you do is you jump onto freedomparty.net.au. That's right, shameless plug, but it needs to be done. Jump onto Freedom Party of Victoria, freedomparty.net.au. We are currently in the process of recruiting candidates. That's right, we are going in guns blazing, take no prisoners, because let's face it, folks, it is now or never. Victoria needs good-hearted people to step up. The future of our state depends on it. Our children depend on it. You know yourself the type of things that are going on in Victorian schools. You're aware of the loss of parental rights, and you're aware that the cost of living in our state is going to be unmanageable for so many people. All right, the government is becoming too big, too powerful, too brazen. They need to be scaled back, but in order to do it, we need people in the fight. All right, so if you think that's you, and if you think that you want to serve Victoria and sacrifice for Victoria, then here's what you do. freedomparty.net.au, click on Get Involved, click on Become a Candidate, and you can proceed to fill out the candidate application form. Shortly after, a member from our team will be in touch, and your application will be processed from that point forward. One of the key ingredients that we're looking for with our candidates are people who do not romanticize about the concept of being politicians. That's right. We're not looking for people who dream about waltzing down the halls of Parliament. No, we're looking for people who love Victoria, who genuinely want to serve the people first and foremost. If you think that's you, if your heart's in the right place, then we want to hear from you. We want to work with you. And ladies and gentlemen, I said it before, but I'll say it again. It is now or never. Alrighty, now, what do we have next? Let me just have a look. Oh, we've got more news articles. Let me just check to make sure that we're all connected. Let's see. All right. I'm not sure if the chat function is actually working. Let me just close it down and open it back up again. There's Aaron there. How are you going? There's Andrew. Andrew Visser says, recruit Jeff Kennett. I don't know, man. What do you guys think? Do you think that we should try and do that? Chantel says the government forced millions of bees to be destroyed. Alrighty. Alright, well, I can see that you're all connected, and I can see that Rumble is connected. So I'm gonna get back to some news articles. I'm sure a lot of you saw this, right? Queensland teachers, school workers not vaccinated for COVID-19 to suffer pay reduction. I mean, they just want to punish people at this stage, don't they, folks? Can somebody explain to me the rationale behind punishing teachers financially? I mean, they say in the article that it's a punishment for failing to comply with some type of directive, but I really can't see how that stacks up. So if getting jabbed was a condition of working, then you figure these teachers would have been fired. If the school was genuinely concerned that teachers who are unjabbed were posing some type of health threat to the students, then why would the school allow unjabbed teachers to work? I think this is just cruelty and discrimination, and it most definitely demonstrates the unfair state of affairs here in Australia. And I have a feeling that there's going to be a lot of people held liable very, very soon for all the injustices that have been inflicted during this period of COVID. All right, what do we have here? Moving across to New Zealand, Jacinda Ardern's popularity is on the decline. That's right. It appears that she is becoming less and less liked as the Prime Minister of New Zealand, and her preferred prime ministerial rating has dropped to 30%. So apparently, based on this poll here, 30% of people think that she should be Prime Minister, and I guess that implies that perhaps 70% of people think that she shouldn't be. I've got a clip here from the protest. There was a very large protest in New Zealand just recently. People protesting against the COVID measures, against the suffering inflicted on the people. I got a little clip here. This is from Global News. I quite like Global News because it's just effectively raw footage without much commentary. So I'm going to play it for you right now.
When I say Labour.
I'm protesting for the lies that this government has made to its people.
What lies?
The lies that this vaccine, this whole shutdown was going to save us.
So that's why, I've got this strong feeling against anything that even smacks of fascism. And Brian Tamaki, to me, just ticks all the boxes for fascism. Yeah, he does worry me quite a bit.
So it's really good to see Wellington come out, stand for inclusion, diversity, and to provide a counter narrative to what happened here at the beginning of the year.
Introducing Lights.
Yeah, so what do you think about that, ladies and gentlemen? What about these counter-protesters, calling them all fascists and right-wing extremists? I mean, it's pretty ridiculous, isn't it? Where did that even come from? Okay, so here's a better question for you. You've got a large amount of people protesting against government powers, and somehow they're the fascists for protesting about a government that has, assumed all these powers. Somebody who supports an ever-growing state, somebody who supports a more and more powerful government, most definitely fits into the category of what could be defined as a fascist person. That's right. So fascism, what exactly is it? Well, it's all about the state. It's all about having a huge state. Everything must be sacrificed for the state. Human collateral, no big deal as long as it's for the advancement of the state. The state is the most powerful body in a fascist society. So these counter-protesters, they're really just... I think they need to get some hobbies, personally, because they're not doing anyone any favors and they're making themselves look very stupid. What an absolute disgrace. How do you go and berate these people that are standing up for their rights? Anyway, moving along here, what do we have? Australian government rejects Greens party call for a rent freeze. All right, this is pretty interesting. So the Greens, they wanted 2-year amnesty, right, from paying rent. So Prime Minister Anthony Albanese said he wasn't sure how it would work. He said, quote, "It's not clear to me, short of nationalising property, how that could be achieved." Well, pretty interesting statement there by Anthony Albanese. Nationalising property. That's, of course, essentially the system in China whereby nobody, unless you're quite powerful, actually owns property, and property is actually leased to the people, sometimes for a lease period of 99 years. So this is how property can be greatly controlled by the government when the government owns, say, part of a stake or an entire stake in people's homes. That's why I think it's very dangerous, this whole idea about the government contributing 40% to own stakes in people's homes here in Australia. Again, it's just further capability to control and manipulate and to have the population effectively eating out of the palm of the government's hand. We don't want that. Of course, we want to be independent. We want to keep more of what we earn. And if the government just stopped breathing down our necks and allowed us to achieve our potential, then we wouldn't be having issues with housing affordability in the first place. All right, a bit of international news here. China deploys ships and jets near Taiwan. The move comes hours after US warships sailed past the self-governed island. That's right. So China, of course, has been playing these games with Taiwan for a long time, flying their fighter jets very close to Taiwanese airspace and the equivalent, of course, in the Taiwan Strait. So China has made no bones about their intention for Taiwan. They have openly declared that it's just a matter of time before they invade Taiwan to take Taiwan by force. This dates all the way back to the Chinese civil war between the nationalists and the communists, of course. Taiwan being now a haven for democracy in Eastern Asia, and China, of course, a haven for communism. So according to the Chinese Communist Party, Taiwan is not a sovereign country and is part of China. Taiwan, of course, says, China, no, we don't want your communist government. We like being a democracy. And thus we're witnessing the unfolding of this impending conflict. So Taiwan, of course, has very good diplomatic relations with Japan. Japan has great fighting capability, and there is most definitely quite a strong alliance between Taiwan, Japan, and the United States. The United States would not want Taiwan to fall to China, as it would grant China quite a strategic advantage in that particular region of the world for various objectives, such as military operations and the passage of commercial vessels. So it's a pretty interesting conflict here. I hear some murmurs from the ADF, or should I say personnel within the ADF, that there looks like there may be some war games starting within our ADF in relation to this particular conflict. So will Australia be dragged into a war overseas around Taiwan? Will we not? Don't completely have the answer to that question, but the writing's on the wall, and it appears that a conflict is probably inevitable and that there's no real way of avoiding it. Maybe you have some different thoughts. If you do, go ahead and put your thoughts in the comments. Russia boosting fuel exports to Asia. All right, so what happens when the Western world and much of Europe places fuel sanctions on Russia? Well, they find new markets. What happens to global oil prices when we see these fuel embargoes? The prices go up, right? So both as a result of supply and demand, but also something that is called market speculation, whereby the hedge funds like to place bets on the oil's futures market to try and predict the price of oil in the future. And as a result of hedging those bets, we see the price of oil, of course, has become quite volatile during this particular conflict. So it's really not good for anyone, but it's probably going to be good for the Asian countries that will now have potentially a surplus of oil, which may indeed bring down their prices. So for the Asian countries who are agreeing to purchase the Russian oil, well, may be very cheap to fill up your tank if you happen to live, of course, in one of those Asian countries. What do we have here? Russian oil, 13% of the world's supply. So it's pretty sizable, pretty big. All right, some Chinese news. Look at this. Point of no return. Crunch time as China tries to fend off property crash. So China has had the most brutal lockdowns probably out of anywhere in the world. And it looks like they're very much suffering for it now. It appears their economy is in trouble. The housing markets in several large cities appear to be on the verge of collapse. We also see a couple of banks have entered into bankruptcy procedures. Of course, there was the big debacle with Chinese depositors trying to get their funds out. So I'm not exactly sure what the strategy is of the Chinese Communist Party that are persisting in this, quote, COVID zero strategy, brutal lockdowns, bolting people's doors shut, beating people up in the street. I mean, it's almost like they're trying to be like what Melbourne was between 2020 and 2021. Maybe they were inspired by Dan Andrews. You know, it used to be the other way around. Anyway, that's a bad joke. But it looks like there could be some serious problems pending for the Chinese economy. You know what would be really bad for the Chinese economy would be if for some reason Australia decided to stop shipping unrefined iron ore to China and, you know, perhaps somehow use that as diplomatic leverage or something like that. Anyway, what do I know? I'm just the host of MCJ Report. Anyway, that just about wraps up the show, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to see if I can open up the chat box because I've actually been struggling to look at the chats this whole time. So let me just try and open it again and see if it works. I can see people on Rumble, Perth Freedom Fighters. There's Matt. How you going, my man? Always a pleasure when you are on the broadcast. And there's Nick Clonarides right there, our candidate for the Eastern region. We are so happy to have Nick. Great guy. Make sure that you click on Nick's name. Go and give him a follow on Facebook because he is doing fantastic things. And we are so excited to have a team that is growing. And of course, there's some trolls. You got the regular trolls in the comments. You know, they love being here. They just want a little bit of attention. They probably don't get much attention in their personal lives. So they can come on the MCJ Report chat, you know, feel good about themselves for a few moments. There's Sharon there. Let me just see. There's Joseph there saying some prayers. Thank you, Joseph. Much appreciated. Let me see. I'll move to the middle of the screen. How about that? We'll do that. Lauren Schneider from Queensland. If anyone has any questions for me, you can put some questions in the comments and I'll do my best to see if I can respond to some. There's Sian there. There's Sula. Great to have you guys here. Our candidate applications are open. The link's in the description, guys. So, yeah, if you think that's you, if you want to roll up your sleeves, then I'm telling you right now, now's the time. It's now or never. We don't need people with political experience. We need people that have big hearts. Big hearts who love this country, who care about the future of our state, who care about shaping an environment that is worthy of our children growing up in. I think it's not asking too much. It's only fair, it's only reasonable, it's only what we deserve. And of course, we must pursue justice to all those who have suffered. All right, let me just have a look here. There's Robbie, how you going? Let me just have a look. Trolls are here because they don't like you. No, I don't know about that. I think they sort of do. I think they like to be here. You know what I mean? Jess says, Morgan, the trolls need help. They will wake up. Well, I don't really have much time for that. We've got an election to win, so I might just leave that job to somebody else if that's okay. There's Jared saying there's not much point commenting, you give up. Don't give up, my friend. Never surrender, never give up, because victory is within arm's reach. Let me see, I'm just having a scroll through the comments right here. Someone says do a special on Neil Mitchell. Well, I don't know if Neil Mitchell will ever have me back on his show. Who here remembers the interview I did on Neil Mitchell earlier this year when I was doing my independent Senate campaign? Look, if they invite me back, I'll go back because I think, any PR is good PR, right? And Janet says, thanks for a great show. Well, Janet, you are what makes the show great. If you didn't tune in, then it would be me sitting at my desk with the lights on talking to myself, and that would be a terrible show. So it's only the fact that you guys come and listen to me. It's very humbling. You could be doing anything else with your Monday night, but you're not. You're here with me, so I just want to say thank you very much. There's Maria there. The truth is for all of us. We just need to wake up. Absolutely right. There's Lily there. Yeah, that was funny. That was funny. Bonnie says it was a classic. Well, we do represent the people, and I'm very happy to say that we're on track, ladies and gentlemen. That's right, we're on track. We have well exceeded the required number of members in order to form a registered political entity. So get excited. Get excited, okay, because we have a tremendous opportunity on our hands. Okay, of course, the government is very comfortable in their ways, and they are very ignorant as well as to the underlying sentiment of the people, and that's where we come in. Okay, so someone said, how many votes will I need for a seat? Well, it's really more about a quota in the upper house. So one quota is 16%. So every upper house region has 5 seats, all right? And we're not really thinking in terms of votes. We're thinking in terms of percentages. You really can't rely on anyone at the end of the day. So I say you just got to go for it. Go for a smooth 20%. And as long as we can change at least a few seats in Parliament, then Victoria can rapidly become a much better place. A few extra people in the upper house who genuinely care about doing the right thing by the general public can effectively reject any originating bills from the lower house. Okay? So just imagine that. Just imagine holding the balance of power. Therefore, any bill introduced has to come through us first. That is the opportunity that is in with arm's reach. All right? Go to freedomparty.net.au, sign up to the mailing list, sign up to be a volunteer. We need as many people out on the street as possible, okay? I can't do it alone, guys. You have to join me. You have to get in this fight with me. Let's do it together. There's Laurel there. If the Slack pattern got in, well, I don't know. Remember, Fiona Patton, maybe not last time round, but when she was originally elected, what did she do? She opened up her money. She paid her way to get in there. So many people do the same thing, but we're not doing that. We're not doing that. We're not paying cash for votes, ladies and gentlemen. We're doing it the right way. We're doing it by running an honest campaign, working hard, being truthful, and never for a single second exploiting or deceiving the public. I wish I could say the same thing for some of the other political parties and even some of the minor political parties out there, but I can't. But from us at Freedom Party of Victoria, I speak on behalf of the whole team when I say that we will do it the right way, and if we get in, fantastic. If we don't, we will leave with our integrity and knowing that we never acted in any way that was exploitative or deceitful. Okay, some people say that when it comes to politics, the ends justify the means. And if the means entail lying and deceiving, then that's okay. We say no, absolutely not. I'm very concerned about candidates who are willing to act in deceptive and exploitative ways just to get elected to office, because of course the question you must ask yourself is, well, if candidate A is willing to deceive and exploit, what is candidate A willing to do should he or her be elected to Parliament? No. It's a slippery slope, and you don't want to go there, folks. You don't want to go there. You either do it the right way or don't do it at all. Is that fair enough? Does that make sense? Bonnie says, just get in there. We're doing our best, Bonnie. We're doing our best. All right, folks. Well, I'm going to wrap it up for this evening and tell your friends that candidate applications are open. The link is in the description of this video. We need people that have big hearts. All right, I'm going to call it a night. So wherever you are, take care. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time on MCJ Report.
Mm-hmm.